The Unholy Trinity Podcast. 3 Blues, 3 Opinions, 1 Everton Podcast.
Welcome back to the second part of today's Unholy Trinity Podcast. And like I said before the break, we've got an expert in our potential new signing, should we say, from the red half of Sheffield podcast, Sheffield United podcast is Chad. And Chad, all the talk, obviously, this half of the show is about Iliman Ndiaye. Obviously, he's on the brink of being announced from what we can understand in terms of coming to Everton Football Club. Medical was all done last week. It all looked good to go. We were just waiting for the famous financial period or PSR window to close. We're nearly there with that. So the big question, obviously, Everton fans have got it in regards to this potential new signing is what kind of impact he can obviously have on our football club. Because obviously, in the 22-23 season, when you're in the Championship and you got promoted, he had a fabulous impact, scored, was it 14 Championship goals, I think, in that particular season. So a great season. What kind of player is he, and where's his best position, basically?
Oh, man, how do I describe this? And I said before we started, it hurts my heart to see him. You know, there's nothing wrong with him. I don't have anything against you guys at Everton. It just hurts my heart to see him go to Everton when he was so influential in our promotion season, as you alluded to. Then he snubs us in the Premier League the first time of asking to go to his alleged boyhood club, Marseille, and then just sits on the bench and scores 4 goals the entire season and is a shell of his former self, as you mentioned, the 14 goals he scored in the Championship for us. I hope you guys are getting the player that was at Sheffield United and not the player that is probably low on confidence, not getting much game time. I'll be honest with you, Marseille came in with a king's ransom and said, or basically held him at ransom and said, if you don't sign for us now, we will never sign you in your career. And he took that as oh man, I'm never going to get to play for my boyhood club if I don't sign now. We already had it lined up. He was going to take the number 10 shirt, lead us into the Premier League. He wouldn't have kept us up because our team was poor anyway, but he's a spark plug. He's very energetic. He loves being on the ball, giving him the ball. He does world of wonders with his feet. And if you look at how it was tactically set up on a piece of paper, he was paired up front with our striker. Most times he played through the middle and would link up with the striker. He would work in that attacking midfield. He is definitely an attacking midfield player, and he's not scared to go on his own. The Everton fans that are watching and listening to this, I would really, really, really encourage you to go check out his first ever goal for Sheffield United against Fulham when we were in the Championship. He went on a solo run from our box to their box, turning inside out defenders, putting them in the, as us United fans would say, the tornado. He would put them in a spin and he'd blow right by them. And then he just one by himself went through the entire defense. Now it was off a break the other way, so he didn't have to beat that many defenders, but he beat enough of them to be like, oh wow, this is some kid that he was just in our academy. And when that season when we were down, that was our first season back in the Championship, and we had just reappointed Paul Heckingbottom as our manager, and it almost came hand in hand. He knew what we had in the academy, and he told him we needed to sign him to a first team contract. And then the next day he was in the Fulham side, and then he scores that winner goal. And then there was 2 years or a year and a half of just phenomenal play. I mean, knock on wood or touch wood or whatever you want to do, he wasn't very injury prone, and that's surprising because it seems in the last 5 to 7 years, everyone at Sheffield United's spent at least a year and a half on the injury table. But I mean, you guys are getting, if you are getting the Iliman Ndiaye that us United fans knew and grew to love and became almost like a cult hero for Sheffield United, you're getting an absolute, like, 2 years ago I would have said he's got a chance to be one of the best players in the world. Now on the international stage he plays for Senegal, so he's not going to get as much attention because he doesn't play for one of the big countries in the world. So he'll be on the fringes, but if you're able to utilize him right and make him one of your best players in the side, a lot of people are going to go like, who is this Iliman Ndiaye? Because a lot of people were probably saying this, they're getting a good player. He played at Sheffield United, helped the promotion, all that. But his skill didn't get put on display at Marseille, and hopefully you guys utilize him the correct way and utilize him the way we did. And yeah, you'll have a right good player on your hands.
Yeah, I think obviously that's the question that some Everton fans have, is obviously they look back at last season's record and think, well, hang on, he's hardly said the word like when he's gone to Marseille. And now if we rewind to last summer, Everton were heavily linked with this player. Kevin Thelwell, our director of football, is a big fan. Obviously, Sean Dyche has got to say yes to transfers as well. And we've been having, obviously, Abdoulaye Doucouré since Sean Dyche has come in. He brought him back in from the cold after issues with Frank Lampard, and he's been playing him as that number 10. But we've had nobody else. We've had a few trials almost where other players have dropped in there. Hasn't really worked. Jack Harrison, Dwight McNeil, those kind of players. So certainly, we as Everton fans, we're looking for somebody who maybe is a little bit more attack-minded in that number 10 position, because obviously Doucouré's not, as much as he's done okay in terms of his goal return, he's a different kind of player, and probably Sean Dyche will look and think, well, I can drop you now a little bit deeper. With obviously, Andre Gomez is left on a free transfer. Amadou Onana is probably going to leave over the course of the summer. We brought in Tim Irabunen from Aston Villa, so we probably utilise Doucouré as potentially that fourth central midfielder. So it'll be interesting to see how different he operates to Doucouré, who's not probably as attack-minded, a different kind of number 10. Because it's probably fair to say, I'm not sure how much you've seen of him in Marseille, but I think he's been used out of position. I think he's been used wide when he's come on, like you say, a lot of time on the bench. So it's not really a true reflection of his ability in terms of what he's done over there when he's not being played in the right position. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I would agree. In the few times I did see him play for Marseille, he was playing way out of position. He's more, as I said, he's more of a central player. And he likes making those darting runs, and especially if he has another midfield pairing in there that can feed off of each other, then it works fine. I mean, it'll be like he has the possibility to turn your midfield into a great midfield if he gets the right pairing and he plays in the right position. Now, if you stick him out wide, he won't be worth a damn. But if you stick him right in behind your striker, if you play him right in behind him, shouldn't have any problem with him.
Yeah, and that's what excites us. I think, a lot of people who are into the stats side of the game that we sort of follow, there's a lot of excitement around this signing because obviously they know what he's capable of in terms of what he did for yourself, obviously in the Championship, and they're not sort of letting themselves get washed over by what happened last season. He's 24 years of age, still young in the grand scheme of things, still very much developing. We've said for a long time at the club, whether it's wide players, whether it's players who are playing a bit more central, but basically players in attacking areas, we need more pace. And looking at him again, you'll know better than me. He carries the ball well and looks to be able to cover the ground pretty quickly as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. He is pacey when he has the ball at his feet. Often you see players, they're quick out in space and then they're tend to slow down when they get the ball at their feet. No, he loves the ball at his feet, and like he said, if he's got his back to goal, he'll get the ball at his feet, turn head up, and he is an assist machine too. I think he had 12 assists or something to go along with the 14 goals he scored. So he is one for an assist. And, I think Everton fans should be excited about signing Iliman Ndiaye. This is, in a year's time, it could look back and this be an absolute dumpster fire of a signing. But everything that, aside from the competition, because the golfing class from the Championship to the Premier League is night and day. I don't think, he had some spells at the Qatar World Cup where he played against better opposition and seemed to hold his own. And I believe he came away with 1 assist. Now he didn't start many games, but I think you guys are going to get a good signing, and hopefully, you can reap the benefits of all the potential that Iliman Ndiaye still has in his tank.
Yeah, I think obviously we look back on the years under say David Moyes when Moyes went shopping in the Championship and obviously did so well in terms of players he brought in. Obviously Tim Cahill is probably the best example that we've got. This is a little bit different in terms of he's got away for 12 months to Marseille and it not really happened. But what he's shown in the Championship is that he can certainly cut it. And as much as yourselves that the gulf between the Championship and the Premier League it is big, and that's another story for another day. But I think there are players certainly within the Championship who've done a couple of seasons who acquit themselves really well, who can make that transition and prove to be a decent signing. I mean, I think the fee we were saying before we started recording. The fee's believed to be in and around £16 million with potential for add-ons above that. Do you think that's a good price in terms of what we're going to be getting for that kind of player?
Yeah, honestly, I think you're getting a player that price tag to me smells of Marseille wanting to get rid of a player that they didn't utilize correct because they paid round about 20 million. And it really sucks for us because we put in that clause when we sold them that we would get a sell-on clause. And for you guys in the neighborhood of 16 mil, that's a $4 million loss. So I don't believe, because it doesn't match what they paid for him, I don't believe we get any of those sell-on clauses. But honestly, I think you might be getting a little bit of a bargain here, in my opinion. I would rate him, when he left us, he definitely was a $20 million player. Now, obviously not playing for Marseille last year, not playing as much. Obviously, it's going to decrease. So, I mean, in terms, yeah, if you're looking at the first time he went for 20 mil, yeah, 16, I'd say is fair. I mean, it's almost kind of like I said, a bargain.
I think when you look at obviously the modern day football, you look at sort of 15, 16 million pound. That's your sort of, 5, 6, 7 million pound from maybe 3 or 4 years ago. The way that obviously prices are being inflated in recent times, it's probably that kind of figure. So I think myself personally, we probably are getting a decent deal, especially if we get that player that obviously you saw so regularly in the 22-23 season. But we certainly look forward to seeing what he can do. He's got a friend obviously at the club in Idrissa Gana Gueye, obviously international teammates, which I'm sure will help him settle in. But obviously we're hoping that this is the sign of things to come, because we are getting linked to pacey wingers as well quite regularly, which suggests now that the pennies dropped. There's a little bit of a plan behind the scenes at the club, and they've realised that speed is massively important, and that's one thing that we've lacked for many years. But Chad, we appreciate obviously your insight into the player. It's great to hear him spoke of so highly. Just before we finish off, obviously Sheffield United were relegated last season. Obviously disappointing season. I think we spoke at the start of the season, didn't we? I came onto your podcast and we had a chat about things. What's the plans now looking ahead to the new Championship season? Do you think there's going to be another push again for promotion from the club? What's happening at the club at the moment?
That's a loaded question from a Sheffield United perspective. Obviously, if we turn the calendar back a year, 2 weeks before the season, we sold Ndiaye, we sold Sanderberg to Burnley. That's when relegation was 99% confirmed. We just had to play the 38 games. Then we go through the dismal season, only winning 3, losing a boatload of them, shipping over 100 goals. We brought back in our club legend manager, Chris Wilder, who was going to turn us around, and we continued to slide. And then so he's the manager to take us into the championship, which I don't agree with. We've been up for sale for better part of 2 years now. There is a rumored United States consortium. You got to put that in quotations because no one knows what the hell that means. That is a rumor to buy us. They seem to be hee-hawing around right now. Nothing. It's been relatively quiet. We have released a handful of journeymen for the club that have been here for the past 10 years. I think about 11 players left on the books, 8 of which I hope go in the summer because I don't really particularly have any love for them. There's a lot of love lost, and there was a lot of, I guess, just weird signings going into last year. You know, we had such a great couple of years in the transfer market in the championship, and then we just seem to throw it all out the window when we're in the top flight. It's going to be mostly frees that come in. We have no money. A lot of frees. Maybe if we sell a couple of players, maybe to buy a few players. As I said, we have one of the brokest Saudi princes in the entire world. I didn't know that any of those could be cash strapped. It blows my mind. So as of recording on June 30th, I think chances are higher that we end up in League One than we end up in the Premier League next year. Based on just not good enough. We won't have the caliber of players. Now, granted, I'm being harsh on where I'm thinking we're going to finish, and we still have about month and a half until our season starts. So obviously you have preseason and we have signings, but it's going towards more of how last year's transfer window went. We waited to the last minute to sign all of these players. They didn't have a full preseason. We didn't get off on the right foot. Players were injured, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So yes, it's going to be an adventurous one. The ups and downs of the best division in my whole heart, the championship, it should be a fun one. The ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, and hopefully we survive relegation and finish somewhere. Consolidate. If I had a plan, I would consolidate, get rid of most of the players, see what we can bring in. If we end up finishing 16th, 15th, I'm okay with that. Consolidate and go in 2 or 3 years' time back to the Prem. My personal, I don't ever want to play in the Premier League again. It's no fun. It's just a money league, and it's for the birds. The championship's much funner. But I think it's going to be at least 2 or 3 years before you see us make a viable challenge. Although this is why I say it's a loaded question. The owners come in, they sound like they want to, if they get in time and get this over the line, and maybe they're waiting for all the, calendar year to restart come tomorrow, they sound like they want to get us back into the Premier League. They want us to do, establish like the Brentford Brighton model where, you finish mid-table and you're able to bring money in and breed players and, let them go for high dollars. That's the goal. But as of right now, I have no idea. That's a long-winded question or long-winded answer. And to sum it up, I have no idea where the hell we stand.
It's really surprising to me, obviously, say that looking ahead to next season after spending that season in the Premier League, that you're looking to just survive in the Championship, which shows you, we've been obviously through our own ownership battles, and we're currently still going through it at this moment in time. The hope and the end is nearly in sight. Obviously, with the Friedkin group just doing due diligence as we speak. But obviously with Farhad Mashiri and him checking out and all that happened in regards to obviously the war in Ukraine, it impacted us so heavily. You know, the PSR charges and points deductions, we've been through it all ourselves. So we know obviously the impact of poor ownership and being mismanaged, what it can do to a football club. And we've been lucky, the fact I think that we've got a fan base like ours that is, you know, when, for want of a better phrase, the shit it's the fan pulls together and pulls them out of the flames effectively. So it's obviously it's a little bit upsetting to hear obviously you speak that way. But I knew your thoughts on the Premier League, I think, last season before it even started in terms of what the league's all about. And that's not a nice league, you know.
No.
I say we've got our battles now in terms of the protection of a certain 6 clubs, and you hear Jim Ratcliffe speaking the way that he does. You know, he's coming in thinking that he can run the show and you know, think that he should get more of a say within voting rights and things like that. It's a farcical situation, but we've got to keep on fighting, of course. But I suppose that the biggest question I've got is, do you want Mason Holgate back on loan?
No, God, no. God, no. Godly, no. God, that player, I don't know. I could probably play better than him, and I haven't kicked a ball but probably 10 times in my life. I mean, he was pathetic. He was absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I was like, okay, I thought we were getting, you know, Mason Holgate of like, he was decent, 10
at one point,
ago?
At one point
he was good. I was like, okay, Mason Holgate, this ain't a bad signing. He kicked the ball and it was like, what in the hell did we get as a player? And then he gets sent off. I believe in his debut, I think he got sent off, straight red card. And then we had so many injuries at the back, he had to slot into our defense, and it was just they knew the opposing teams knew to attack him, and it was just a leaky faucet at the back. He couldn't defend to save his life. I mean, he couldn't defend his way out of a paper bag. It was comical. I was like, man, I think we're getting a halfway decent, you know, player. But I also question is like, if he is a halfway decent player, why are Everton not using him? And lo and behold, we all in Sheffield United world found out why Everton loaned him, because he is horrible.
Well, he struggled at Southampton before. Obviously, he came to you on loan, but he's on decent money at Everton. He got given a decent contract, I think, under Carlo Ancelotti. I think it was at the time, but he was in decent form. You know, as a utility defender, playing centre half or right back mainly. He was all right. He was a bit rash at times. His decision making was a little bit. I mean, obviously you saw that was a little bit poor, but we thought there was something in there. He was athletic. He was quick, but his decision making was always his downfall. But I think not sort of, you know, the club sort of saying, listen, you can go on loan, you can go somewhere. It's probably done for him a little bit, and he's still got 12 months left on his contract. So we've still got him for 12 months, paying him £75,000 a week. Obviously, at the moment, we are trying to ship him out to another club. The chances are it'll be a loan, but he's done himself no favours in the last sort of 12 months given the loan spells that we've seen. But yeah, that was a strange one. I remember watching him get sent off and just thought, you know, that's the player that he's become, but also the player that at times we've seen, you know, with his poor decision making. But Chad, that's us for today. I really appreciate you taking a bit of time coming out before the England match today. Obviously, it's a busy Sunday for most people, and best of luck for the new season.
Yeah, cheers, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. And that's us for today's show. Thanks for listening. As always, make sure you do give us a rating and subscribe and things like that across Spotify and Apple Podcast and YouTube. We do a bit more on there now. We do appreciate it. And we're probably going to be back next weekend before I go on holiday, off on my holidays to Turkey for 10 days. So that should be nice. But we should be back next weekend, assuming there's a busy week at Goodison Park. We will see. So we will catch you then.
The Unholy Trinity Podcast. 3 Blues, 3 opinions, 1 Everton podcast.